Mr. and Mrs. Payne saw the thing late one night when they were returning to Warminster on Mr. Payne's motorbike just before they were married.
Well, we saw these massive sort of discs appear from a clump of trees. And I said to he was my boyfriend then, good heavens, what on earth is that? And of course the bike had broken down, you see. And he said, well, I had no idea. So we stood there looking at it, bigger and bigger, and came towards us. Which absolutely just struck dumb. We didn't know what it was.
A few miles outside Warminster is the Elizabethan mansion of Longleat. Nigel Mingay, the son of Lord Weymouth's butler, describes the thing as it came his way.
Well, I was out one night, and a friend who I know, who lives just across the road, he said he'd seen it. Well, I didn't believe him, but he told me to come out, so I went out with him, and we walked around for about half an hour, and then we were sort of looking around the sky the whole time, hoping to see it. But we were just on the verge of coming in when we saw it, and it went right across the horizon.
Yes, where did it go exactly?
Well, if I can show you just out here, it appeared from behind this tree and went right over the sky and disappeared just before it got to that tree.
And what did you feel like when you saw it?
Well, I was surprised, not shocked, but I always had an open mind about it. But now I believe in it.
How many other Warminster people believe in it? Or perhaps we ought to say, how many Warminster people are willing to confess that they believe in it? So far as we can judge, there seem to be believers, disbelievers, and don't knows in about equal proportions. And quite a number of people in each category appear to be more than a little worried about the whole business.
The story ricocheted around the world, for example, after the first big sighting of the aerial cigar, which was to the south there. And that was by the vicar and his family of Heytesbury, 17 young people at Warminster, the hospital physiotherapist, Miss Long, the Horlocks, who described 2 flaming red pokers, which is rather graphic, of course, but I could see what they meant. Having seen the thing myself now, I think I can see what they meant by that description.
Now, would you tell us exactly what you did see?
Well, I saw, this will always be indelible on my mind, because it was 3:42 p.m. on the last Tuesday, that's September the 28th, the last Tuesday in September. And I was going upstairs. We live in rather a high-up flat over a Monumental Masons. They call us Death Row, incidentally, because we have the hospital, doctors, undertaker, and then we're the Monumental Masons next door. But apart from that macabre observation, I went upstairs and I was completing a story for a magazine which is coming out in April on a woman lion tamer who can also tame all sorts of jungle cats in the same cage. Mary Chipperfield, you've probably heard of her. And I went up for my notes, but my attention was arrested by this huge cigar shape in the sky. Now, had I normally been walking underneath that, I'm sure it would have assumed the proportions of nothing but a dense white cloud. But from the angle of vision that I had from the top of our house, I could see a peculiar hump, a yellow or an amber burnished protrusion from the top. And I'd never seen anything like this in all my life. And it was 9 months after this thing started. And I honestly don't think I've been conditioned to all that extent. Although I've lived in the centre or the vortex of this mystery, let's face it, it is a mystery. But I wasn't convinced, even in spite of the high calibre of witnesses, I wasn't convinced that this thing existed. But I saw this with my own eyes. I dashed straight away for a camera. I got the camera lined up, and the setting was about 8. It was a beautiful, clear afternoon. Out of the window, this thing came along over Colloway Clump, which is over there, northwest to southeast, gliding along, a gentle giant in the sky. I trained my camera on it, and I felt the camera jumping about in my hands. That was the first unusual aspect. It didn't frighten me, but I felt like sharp prickling needles down that side of the hand, the wrist, that side of the face, and my eye watered for 2 months afterwards on that side. That was the exposed side to this thing. Now that proved to me that whatever was on board, or whoever was on board, could see me, could see this apparatus of mine. It threw out some concentrated force field, I'm quite serious about this, which with the deliberate intent of gumming up the camera. And of course they succeeded, because nothing developed from 25 feet of film except an 8 feet portion burnt right through. That's all I had on my camera.
If they're trying to make a major impact,
Yes.
one would think they wanted all possible publicity. Why should they want then to gum up the camera?
Well, I think the reason that struck me at the time, my wristwatch incidentally stopped. I didn't notice that until afterwards. I don't think that they're so worried perhaps about photography, but if they're thousands of years advanced, over us, and they've learned perhaps thousands of years ago to outlaw war, and you notice that the heaviest sightings of these people on this Earth are just preceding a world war or some nuclear experimentation, some danger threshold, shall we say. If that's the case, and they saw the camera there, what's to prevent them being at no more than half a mile up at that time, I'm sure, thinking automatically, here's one of those crazy Earthmen and he's got a gun on us. I think that it's a fear that they have that I might have opened up on them, you know, with a machine gun. For all they knew, I think that that's why they gummed up.
There's no shortage of people who've seen peculiar sights and heard peculiar sounds. Mrs. Head's got the most vivid recollections.
I was woke up really out of me what sleep I had by this noise. First of all, it was like hail. And then it got nearer onto the roof, and it was like a lot of cats scratching, or like an aerial scratching about, you know, up there. And then I thought to myself, well, what on earth is that? I lay in bed for quite a while, and I got quite hot. I got panicky, you know. So I did venture, and I paid to bed. And I looked out of the window, and there wasn't a drop of rain. It was all dry. Everything was as dry as a bone. But after that went over, I heard a whimpering noise, and like someone going, that was the noise it was. And I thought, whatever is it? And I sat on the side of the bed, of course, Jean's in with me, and she said, whatever's the matter with you? I said, do you hear that noise? She said, no, nothing, don't wake me up. She went to sleep again. So the dog downstairs, she didn't bark, but she was making that woofing noise. You know, woof like they do. And afterwards, when I turned over on my side and I got into bed, it looked as though there was a light, like the cloud going over a moon. I don't know whether anything passed over then, but there was no planes, nothing at all in sight.
I pull the blankets up over my head and think, damn the army, I wish they'd shut up and go to sleep.
In bed or out, Miss Anderson has both feet right on the ground. She's no intention of being taken in by any talk of visitors from other planets.
Last summer, I got up one morning, looked out of my bedroom window, and we had got army in green camouflage jackets with leaves in their steel helmets romping round the estate yard and the withy beds beyond. You could call those little green men, I suppose.
Now, what do you think about this general mystique that's developed about these objects around here?
I think it's a pity that so many people are ready to make categorical statements about a thing that nobody has bothered to investigate. As far as I have been able to discover, there has been no coordinated observation, no scientific inquiry as to what's happening. Various individuals have seen various things and have immediately drawn their own conclusions.
Well, if there's anything going on in brackets kind of thing, I'd like to know what it is. If there's any nice little men about, spares, sort of from Venus, Mars, anywhere, have them come here by all means. I mean, we'd like to know them. And if it's giving people something to talk about, we'll bring trade to the town. Fair enough, go on with the whole thing.
So we continued to watch it for a while, and then it started this very erratic movement again. So I said, is it a star? And he said, no, it isn't. And then he believed, as well as me, that there was definitely something around.
I believe in it because, whereas those who haven't seen it don't believe it, those who have seen it must believe in it. It's as simple as that. Those who see, believe. Those who don't see, scoff.
I don't believe them. Just don't believe in it at all. I think there's something that's it's not proved. I just don't believe they exist until they are actually proven as a thing, you know. I mean, they can show photos, but I think there's something to explain it all.
Yeah, but this is a fact. I have seen it. Oh, I have seen it too. As a matter of fact, we come here with a plane one night. We were travelling rather fast. They just overtaken, so my wife said, "Stop, stop."
Well, it appeared to be round to me. But my husband was driving rather fast and he wouldn't stop to have a look at it.
And then when we got home, she explained to me this is the thing she had seen herself before and she wanted me to stop to see it. But I myself have only seen the movement of it from terrific distance at terrific speed. That's all I can tell you. And I firmly believe in it. It doesn't bother me. I'm a Christian. I don't care about it at all.
Have you seen anything else since?
Yes, I have seen it once, I think a few months later, as I was looking out of one of my back windows. It was above the trees, and then it was swaying.
Did it look the same?
Yes, it did. It had the red light as well as the previous one.
What sort of shape did it have?
Well, it looked round. You know, I can describe it. You can't really describe it.
Just between those two bungalows, over there, I saw this thing, and it was very bright white, but it was sort of dome-shaped, you know, like a saucer.
Mrs. Atwill, a pilot's wife, had a most moving experience, after which she'll never feel quite the same again.
The noise woke me.
Tell me about
the droning noise. They were like sound waves. Never heard anything like it before. Never.
Loud?
Oh, terribly loud. That's why I can't understand why my neighbours didn't hear it. Because I'm not a light sleep. I sleep soundly.
And none of your neighbours heard
No.
this?
No. Even my little boy was fast asleep. I went in to see him. I was too frightened, really, to think. I shall never forget it.